I've asked my mother so many times, could I see a therapist? Could I see a therapist? It was just out of the question. I wrote a letter to my mother. I said, I need help. Oh, comfy.
All right, long couch, short people.
Right on.
Well, thank you so much for coming here to talk about something that I think is really intense that a lot of people hold in or don't talk about, and that's anger. Yeah.
Anger.
You know, it's a natural human emotion that so many times we're told not to.
I'm happy to be here to talk about it. Actually, this is not something I have ever talked about in person before, so this will be interesting.
I mean, I think anger is just one of those topics where from every angle, you're being told how you're supposed to do it. Mm-hmm. And I wonder for you, like, what was it like growing up? What kind of feelings of anger did you have that, like all of us, you had to deal with or hold in or let out in different ways?
Especially growing up in an Asian household, emotions in general were just not accepted. Even if you were feeling happy, you could do better. If you were feeling sad, it'll go to your room, it'll pass. Especially anger, like what do you do as a kid? It's pent up and you're just forced to sit in silence, and then it just continuously builds until it turns into resentment. As a kid, there was no outlet to even express that.
What were the kind of things that as a kid you felt like you had to hold in, that you couldn't talk about, that you felt that kind of anger rising up?
So growing up, a lot of your life decisions your parents make, and you kind of just have to go with it. So a lot of things that my parents decided for me affected my life so deeply that it hurt me. It made me sad. I had to lose parts of my family, so it's just now my immediate family, and just there was so much change, and I didn't have any outlet to express that. Eventually I ended up with, depression, anxiety, and I had these coping mechanisms that weren't healthy, and I didn't even know better, but I knew at a time I needed help. And every time I tried to explain to my parents, my dad, it's fine, brush it off. Like, my mother is like, that doesn't even exist in their world. Mm-hmm. Because to be honest, our parents are on survival mode 24/7. I don't think they even had a chance to process their own emotions. So how the heck would they help process your children's? And I was just like, I want to go to therapy. I feel sad, I'm angry. I know I'm not in a healthy state. Like, please help me. And it just got constantly brushed aside. So that's how it was growing up in my household. And growing up, you just kind of have to figure it out, which is the hardest part because you don't know what's right or wrong, and we didn't even have outlets back then to look up anything.
When you felt angry as a kid, what did that feel like?
It felt hopeless, lonely, like you just have no one to talk to. You kind of just are in your head and it just goes to a dark place.
What did it feel like in your body when you were the most angry about something?
Oh my gosh. Thinking back to it, I think it got to the point where it's building up so much that you just kind of throw stuff. Sometimes you just want to take it out on yourself. It's just
kind of feels like it's rising up in your body.
It's burning you up from the inside out.
Were there times when you felt like you couldn't express your anger because of who you are, because of expectations?
100% expectations, because again, in an Asian household, the number one thing is you have to save face. No matter how you're feeling, to everyone else you have to be perfect. You have to have everything polished, under self-control. I remember doing a family photo shoot, and I was just so angry that what I was wearing, that what they chose for me wasn't what everyone else was wearing, and they told me to go sit in the car until I was calmed down. But it only made me angrier.
Did you get those same messages from school, from people that you were around in activities, that you couldn't express yourself if you were feeling like that?
Actually, I had a really terrible high school experience. I was bullied out of high school my senior year. Not only by the students, but the faculty. I had to drop out and become homeschooled. Goes back to, I was just feeling, so much sadness and anger, and no one was there to help me, just mostly because I guess they didn't know how to as well.
Sometimes those things really come together, the sadness and the anger.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true for you.
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand. I think sadness comes first, and then once it stays with you for a while, it builds up to anger if you don't express it the right way. I think the best way to do it would just be, to talk to someone. Back then I didn't have anyone to talk to because both my brothers went to college. They were also angry people as well. They're doing better now. But having no one to talk to was really the hardest part because
Yeah.
there's no outlet.
How did it come out for your brothers differently than for you?
Oh my gosh. Yelling, taking it out on the younger siblings, maybe throwing something. Luckily, their outlet was hockey.
You mentioned reaching out for help. What were the things that you did when you were feeling anger that really helped to kind of get you through those moments?
Now, luckily, as an adult, I can partake in therapy. I reached out to people who made space for me so I could talk about it and make me feel like I was not alone in it, that it is okay, that it's normal. My feelings are valid, that feelings are also fleeting. So as long as I, express it and talk about it and free myself from that, I'm giving myself room to grow and to realize that, I don't have to keep it in all the time. I think also with therapy as well, figuring out what are the best coping mechanisms that work for you because everyone's so different. And, at the end of the day, talking to the right people who make it feel very normal and not letting it build inside of you.
And what are the things that you learned, the coping skills that help you when you're feeling like you're in that moment and it's hard to get out?
My best thing is I go for a walk. I love to go for a walk.
Yeah.
Fresh air, let the sunshine hit you. Focus on a leaf, brings you back to the present moment. You're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about the past. Calms you down, it centers you. Take some deep breaths and breathe out all that heat that you're feeling inside, just breathe it out. Take a few moments. Those are the best ways that I like to do.
What advice would you give to a young person who is feeling really angry?
The number one thing is to pause, is to really collect yourself for a minute and not react, to really just take a few breaths and think, okay, what can I do, constructive things that I can do to cool myself down? Go on a walk, go hug your dog, go drink a whole glass of water, something to get your mind off of it for a few minutes because it will pass. It'll make you feel at least a little better. Or, if you have a great support system, call them up and be like, I'm having a hard day. Can I just talk to you for a few minutes? I think that really helps.
Do you ever not know how to identify a feeling?
I go through this in my head. I'm just like, okay, I'm feeling angry. Why do I feel angry? And be like, I feel angry because this. And be like, okay, what can I do solution-based to make myself feel better? X, Y, and Z. And I go through that process. So I don't know if that's what everyone goes through.
A lot of people have trouble even recognizing that they're angry.
You know what I have in therapy? It's the best. It's this little color wheel.
Love it.
Anger's such a big emotion. It's huge, It's like, I feel angry. Okay, but what do you really feel? And I was like, what do you mean?
What's underneath
What
that,
do you mean?
right?
And then there's resentment. Do you feel disrespected? Do you feel humiliated? Do you feel, there's so many little parts of anger. And I think to really recognize those is how you can address and come up with better solutions to make yourself feel better.
Right, you can't act on anything if you don't know where it's coming from.
Right, if you felt disrespected, if I felt disrespected from you, I'd be like, okay, I know exactly how I feel. I'm angry and I feel disrespected. I'd be like, hey, I feel like you did something that disrespected me and you can really talk about it there. Because if I just say, I'm angry, you'd be like,
I don't know what that means,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. Yeah.
Exactly, so going through that little emotion wheel really helped me.
How do you move through anger?
Well, first off, I let myself feel angry.
Love that.
I think the best way to go through any emotion is to feel it to its core. Don't put it to the side. Just take a moment, few minutes. Feel it. If you have to cry, cry. I love crying.
Oh, crying's
It's the
great.
best.
I think it's really,
Just-
really helpful.
Do whatever your body's telling you to do because you have to honor your body. If you have to punch something, take a pillow. If you need to cool down, take a few breaths. If you need to, whatever your body needs, respect it, feel the emotion, and then just let it pass.
Because they do.
It does.
Sometimes it's hard to believe. Sometimes when you're in it, you really don't think it's gonna pass.
Especially when you're, neck deep in it, you really think it's the end of the world, but truly, you've gotten through way harder days, You can get through this. We're all survivors, low key, you know what I mean? You gotta be proud of yourself and give yourself that.
And once you've gotten through that kind of anger, what do you think looking back on those kind of situations?
I like to look back and be like, I got through it. I'm gonna get through this. So that's what I always think about. I always try to see the positive side of things.
Was it hard for you to reach out to a therapist for the first time?
Oh no, not for me. I was stoked. I've asked my mother so many times, could I see a therapist? Could I see a therapist? She's like, she's even, you know, to an Asian person, an Asian parent especially, that's taboo. So it was just out of the question. And it took me closing the door in my room, like about to scream. And I said, okay, my words verbally are not getting through. I wrote a letter to my mother. I said, I need help. And I put it under her door, and then about 10 minutes later, she came into my room. She's like, I hear you, I understand you. And she's like, let's figure it out.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a huge turning point for me and my mother's relationship, because I think it was the first time she was open to even letting me express my emotions to her properly. I remember that, and you know, I'm very grateful. Now I'm so grateful that we have, you know, easy access to therapy, so I signed up immediately. But it is hard finding a therapist.
Yeah.
Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. Figure out what you need help with, and then find your therapist that, you know, really can help you work through those. One that you feel very comfortable with as well, and then go through that journey together.
What would you tell someone who's looking to find a therapist who understands them?
Honestly, I think the best way to do it would be to maybe ask someone, if they're in therapy, ask for a recommendation and go from there. Because you can ask their therapist, and then they can recommend you a bunch of therapists, and then you have the option to meet with them and figure out if they're the right fit.
Thank you for talking about anger in such a relatable way. I really felt that.
Thank you for, letting me talk about anger, because it's not something that comes up in everyday,
Definitely not.
conversations. But it was a nice reminder to myself.